name is Margaret. I'll be your broadcast engineer for today. Ba 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 ba. Hope y'all are having a lovely day. I'm here at the wonderful Charles Delphs. How you doing, Charles?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. I'm well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. So we are continuing a really awesome discussion that we started yesterday, which is about FM BetterForms, which is a way of making web apps for your FileMaker databases, which is really cool. We had a very basic introduction discussion about FM BetterForms versus like WebDirect and Go and what certain features it brought to you, as well as the basics of setting one up. We'll be continuing that discussion today. It's good to see you all here. Good to see you all drifted in. Please say hello so I know that you're here and I can say hi back. FM training, basically, we do this 5 days a week on 3 different platforms. We have a really lot of really awesome presenters, frankly, that talk about a huge variety of FileMaker topics. Last month was pretty much the week of FileMaker 2025 release. This August will be interesting. We have some really cool stuff, obviously, with the BetterForms. We have some stuff with Hanzo. We have some stuff with Nick. We cover a really huge variety of topics. However, if you are looking for just learning the basics of FileMaker so you can become a FileMaker developer, we also have video training for that. You might find that more useful, or if you're trying to answer like a specific question, like I really want to hear about PSauce, but don't have anything on the PSauce for schedule for like a month or like several months. If you want to hear about specific topics, you can go look at our FM training stuff. So, with that being said, Charles, if they want to support you, if they want to go you get your product, where would I direct them? I'm gonna share my screen.
Basically, just visit our website is a good start, www.fmbetterforms.com. And we do a lot of one-on-one. We're a really high touch company in terms of support
Mm-hmm.
and community. We have a big community as well. So I really encourage people, even if you're not using BetterForms, come join the community because there's lots of great talks, a lot of things on progressing software, software as a service. Um, Even transitioning out of FileMaker and into other companies and things like that too. So we have a one other thing too I'll promote is we have a monthly meetup called Friday Live, and that's on Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern. And we have a pretty good turnout for that. And we talk about all kinds of stuff with related to web apps and related to FileMaker as well.
Excellent. Cool. With that being said, what are we doing today? Where are
All
we
right. Well,
continuing
I
the
figured I'd share my
conversation?
yeah, I figured I'd share my desktop again, and we'll kind of recap from where we left off yesterday.
Please do.
And yesterday we looked at a web app, and we talked about basically what web apps are, and we looked at building how we go about building some things. We fetch some data from FileMaker. We actually save some data back into FileMaker. And I wanted to show you, this is a template that I started working on. And I want to show you how it works, and we'll do a little bit more work on it today. And even if you're not using BetterForms, a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today is about just preparing JSON data from within FileMaker, and that can be used for any FileMaker use case. Excuse me. So this is a template, and it's a template that is connected to this guy right here. So this is connected to FM starting point, and currently we can see that we have two invoices, and it's fetching invoices, or sorry, estimates, my mistake. It's fetching estimates, and there's actually four estimates in the database, but only two of them belong to the account that I'm logged into. So we have some scoping. Um, I haven't bothered changing the default username here, but I'm just going to log out for a second. And you can see that I'm logged out here, and I'm going to log in as a user, and I have in terms of my accounts. And, obviously, if you're not using Starting Point, you're using some other application. You usually, typically, if you're dealing with stuff with your customers or your customers' customers, potentially, you have some different levels of organization of your data, right? In this case, we have accounts. Sometimes you might call those companies or organizations. We have contacts. Those are the people within the accounts in this particular case. And then the assets of that company, which are the estimates, the invoices, the projects, excuse me, and so on. So I have a company, Delphs Engineering, which is my company, and Delphs Engineering has one contact here. So I'm going to jump into that contact. And I've made one small change to this database, very, very small. And I'll go through all the stuff that we've done here. Otherwise, this is exactly out of the box. I've added this button here. I copied it from somewhere else, the UI, and it says send web portal invite. click here to email a web invite. I didn't bother connecting this up to an actual email server. So what it's going to do is it's just going to take and give me a link. And this is an example of like using an invitation type basis for your web apps. Quite often with companies, you want, one of two or three different scenarios. So you want either the whole world can use your stuff like an e-commerce site, or maybe you want just some people to use your application, and that's kind of invite only. That's very, very typical for business to business contacts. They don't want everybody just to create accounts. And then sometimes you don't even want any authentication. You want somebody to just be able to visit and maybe access some data, some catalog data, request some data, but you don't need to actually have them log in or anything like that. So what I've done here is I'll show you how this works in a second, but we'll look at it, what it's actually going to do. It's going to create a link, and it's just putting it on here for now. This would normally be emailed to me, right? This link here. So that would normally, I would receive that in a send mail script if you configure your email, or maybe use SendGrid or Mailgun or one of those mail companies. And I'm going to paste this link into here. And actually it says, let me just see, it says it's not valid. And that is because I think we've created this person again. Let me just try this one more time. Make sure I did this right. And there's probably no bugs in my software here. I just did this quick. Oops. That's quite possible there. And we want this guy. So I want to make sure I copied the right one. Okay. All right. It's saying and this is the reason for this is because I'm already registered here. So what would happen is I would want to invite Charles into this to be able to use this app. So we want only him to be able to use that, and we want to send him a link that can potentially expire. All right. And this is a common practice. You can do this with any FileMaker use case for these kinds of things. Not necessarily for logging in, because you can't really control authentication like that in FileMaker directly. But what we're doing is we're creating a field. So in this context, we'll just have a quick look here. I created a field called somewhere in here called temp token. This is just a one extra field. It's called temporary token, and it's going to hold a unique ID. We use a UUID, so it's sufficiently unique. Nobody can
Mhm.
guess it. And we append that on to the end of a URL. So let's have a look at that, what that would look like typically. So we
Okay.
have pardon, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask about the Tim token thing. Is that another reserved name for a field that it automatically
No,
looks for?
it's just a name. It's an arbitrary value that we're
Okay,
going to create a temporary value for.
got it. Okay.
What we want to do, Margaret, is we want to be able to send you an invite, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to make sure that once you've used that invite, nobody else can use it again. It's not like, nobody's mail has ever been hacked.
Yes.
So sometimes that's a potential attack vector. If somebody
Mm-hmm.
hacks your email and you have password resets or any of those kinds of things that don't expire, somebody could go and click on that link and
Mm-hmm.
potentially gain access. So this one's an invite link, and it's going to a sign up page. If I normally just go to the sign up page here, and when I go to the sign up page, it's actually saying this link is no longer valid. And that's correct. That's a behavior that we want. We only want valid links. Okay. So the way we do this is that we append onto the query. This was called the query. This part of the
Mm-hmm.
URL. And there's a key called token. Oops, a key called token and a value of a unique ID. And FileMaker just generated that. When we land on this page, and this is how you can really create really custom or flexible authentication business logic in BetterForms. You have a lot of flexibility because you have
Mm-hmm.
control over these pages. Let's have a look at this page. I'm going to go over to BetterForms here. I'm going to find my authentication page. And it is the sign up page. Here it is here. And here's my sign up page here, the design. So we can change the design and so on if we wanted to. But I really want to go over to this tab over here. It's the settings. And it has this setting. We talked about this yesterday. This is kind of the equivalent of FileMaker's on layout load script trigger.
Yes.
In this case, it's going to run a script. and it's going to run a script before that page actually renders.
Okay.
Okay, so it runs it before it renders. Let's have a look at the script now that it's going to actually load. I'm going to jump back into FileMaker over here. And I mentioned yesterday in terms of integration, when you're integrating BetterForms, we basically pasted in some custom functions. So there was a folder of custom functions in here. We can see those right here. There they are. There's a folder,
Mm-hmm.
folder full of, most of them are utility functions for manipulating JSON.
Mm-hmm.
And I pasted in some scripts as well. Oops, this folder here. So within this folder, I have a script step or a script folder called sign up. Sign up. And you asked a really good question near the end yesterday. You said, how are these connected? And we talked about this key here.
Mm-hmm.
By having this point to sign up, we're calling that particular folder of scripts.
Okay. As a side note, I noticed you didn't need to type BF on the other side.
Correct. Yeah, that's appended on all of them. And that just guarantees that there's no name collisions with anything you have randomly inside your database.
Okay, got it.
It also, by scoping these things with the name of the script, quite often users build more than one app that connects to the database. In our case, we're connecting to BusyCorp here, and it looks like I'm going to be able to see my estimates and maybe later
Mm-hmm.
on my invoices and things. But I definitely don't want that user to maybe see my all my projects, maybe their projects, and I don't want them to see all my products, only the products maybe that they've ordered. And so I have certain scopes of what I want people to do. So maybe I have some sales agents, and I want the sales agents who are roaming about to be able to log in as well. In that case, I'd probably build a totally separate app for them so that they have much more information on it. It could be really information rich, the app, and it can be they can basically see all of the accounts, all of the contacts and things like that that a sales agent,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, would normally be able to see.
Okay, that makes sense. You have different web apps to access different layouts and different chunks
Exactly.
of information that they need.
If you have a jobber, supplier
Mm-hmm.
that you're, sorry, yeah, supplier that you're purchasing from, and you want them to be able to check some type of requisitions or things like that from your side. Like, if you're a big company, one of these big box companies, and you have a all the suppliers have to log into their portal.
Mm-hmm.
You might build a separate app just for that,
Okay.
right? So you
That
can have these various levels of apps. Those all sit separately in terms of scripting and business logic. They sit inside separate folders. So I've called this one Portal
mm-hmm.
because that was going to be the name of my first app. But I might call another one staff and they could book their staff booking hours off. I might call another one sales, totally separate apps.
Okay.
And the user base can be managed separately with those as well. All right. So we're going to go back to this one here to sign up.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the on form request here. And there's a bit of scripting in here, and we'll just walk over what's happening here. So prior to me clicking the button and generating that link, we went into the contact page. Oops, sorry, let me just move this down for a sec. We went into the contact. Where are you? There we go. And we ran let me see if I can actually find that script. If I just run this, we can actually see it run. Okay. We ran a very, very simple script. Here it is here. And it's grabbing the email from the email field. It's grabbing a temporary token. It's setting a variable for a temporary token of get UUID. And it's putting that back into this temporary token field, right? We could have done that in one step, but just a little more clear here. So
Mm-hmm.
we're basically finding the user's email, or not finding it. We're just grabbing it from and setting it into a variable, setting this temporary token with a UUID. We are saving that in the field. Then we're building a URL out. And this is a URL. We can't quite see it here, but you can kind of read it. It's a URL to my sign up page. And we're concatenating $temp token on the end, right? So that's going to create that smart link.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a bit of a body here. It says you've been invited to the BusyCorp temporary portal. Please register with this. And we would normally call send mail. I mentioned I didn't bother to configure this because that's way too hard for me,
Yeah, email is
out of
a
my pay
whole
grade.
other adventure.
Yeah, that's another call. And everybody
Yes.
has their own email systems built in usually, right? So we
Yes.
prefer to use SendGrid because that was one of our first integrations, and we just cookie cutter it, and it works well. But whatever you use, and I'm showing just a custom dialog here. So that's what's happening on that side there. Now, when this page first loads, that's the sign up page. I'm grabbing out of one of those reserved variables called query. So BetterForms has about 5 or 6 of these reserved variables, and those are the,
Hmm.
the the data that we communicate with the app in. $BF query is a JSON object of all of those query parameters because you can have all kinds of really complex query parameters. Just a second here. Right in here, there might be a case where you've probably seen these before, and it'll say something like and ID equals something like that. So there's a couple parameters there.
Hmm.
So you could concatenate as many as you wanted on there if you wanted. So that's why it comes in as a JSON object.
Yes.
Okay, let's jump back. We
So,
grabbed the token.
so it validates it. When you mean it validates, is it checking that it's accurate? What exactly is it
We're going to check
validating?
that it exists,
Oh,
actually.
okay. That
Because
makes
we
sense.
want to be able, with any kind of smart link or anything that you invite people to, you never want to use your primary IDs for that because you can't really get rid of them. You can't disable a primary ID, but a temporary
Oh.
token is just as unique, but you can blow it out.
Oh. Okay. So if you're like, I need to remove you from the system, you can easily
Yeah,
destroy their
exactly.
token. Okay.
Right.
Got
So
it.
if I want to throw an invite, I want to invite everybody to tomorrow's call. I send it out, but it only maybe has a certain calendar invite. And then at the end of the day, I might say, oh, I want to cancel that, or I sent the wrong Zoom link. I can disable that. That's the idea.
Okay. Cool.
So we are searching for the contacts. This is it's going to be a weird looking search for most people, but this is a really, really elegant way of doing some stuff without breaking context in FileMaker. Traditionally, you would do something like, go to layout,
Perform find. Yeah.
perform find, right? And exactly and handle all of that, what happens if it didn't find and there's an if in there and all of that stuff, right?
Hmm.
This one here is using that SQL query of get column. So it's going to select this. If you're familiar with SQL, it's doing a select. It's doing select the email or
Okay.
return the email when the temporary token matches the token I passed in.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right. And then if email is either populated or it's empty, one of the two.
Hmm.
All right. Then from there, if we have an email, so I'm checking for the presence of an email. If it's empty, or if it's not, if it's empty in this case first, the negative case first. If it's empty, we're communicating back to BetterForms and we're saying, go back and navigate. This is equivalent of FileMaker's go-to layout. Navigate to the login page. We call it a path
Hmm.
versus a go-to layout, right? This is one of those reserved variables that we mentioned yesterday as well. And this is injects actions. It's like basically saying, I'm sending this instruction. The instruction is a path, a go-to layout, and I'm
Hmm.
sending that instruction back to the browser, right? So it's pretty elegant that way. Then I'm sending another one. I can group these together. I'm sending another one that it's a modal. And then the modal is saying, oh no, this link is no longer valid, right? So that's for an empty email, and that's what we're seeing now. And then the other case is if we found that email, what I'm doing is I'm passing the email back into the front of the front of the application. So by doing this, by sending the email to the front, I'm guaranteeing that that person signs up with the same email that I sent them. I don't want to send somebody John at BusyCorp and then they sign up John at AT&T, their home internet kind of thing.
Okay,
All
that
right.
makes sense. Real quick, show modal. That's another word for pop-up dialog, essentially, right?
Correct. Exactly. It's doing exactly this thing. If I could find it here, just a sec. It's doing this. It's it's doing that.
Yep. Okay, got it. Cool.
Right. And this X icon um, was determined by that middle setting. Where is it here? Error.
Got it. Okay.
Right. There's a few different other ones that they can select. But it's also taking me to a different page. So now I'm back to the login page. So it kicks me out of there.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
So these are things that you don't usually have to worry about when you're building just a FileMaker app because it's John in accounting and Janice in shipping and it might not work for them the first time, but you're not hiring that many people, you're not onboarding that many people, so you don't really think about those experiences. Um, the IT person says, "Here, I'll get you in. Sorry, I haven't added you in yet," and then
Hmm.
fix it up and they're off and running. So you don't have to cater to that. But with the web, on the website, you really have to kind of clean that stuff up so it feels smoother. Same thing for things like forgot your password, and how does that work as well? I enter my link and send a recovery link and so on. So that's a very, very typical experience.
Hmm.
Um, with BetterForms, we can create different types of logins. Um, this is using what's called basic authentication. That's like a username, or in this case, an email and a password.
Hmm.
But you can also use companies like Okta or Auth0 or Google. And between those, there's about maybe another 60 or 70 ways of authenticating, right? Because they basically are an authentication or identity provider. So
Yes.
a lot of people or sorry, they support a lot of services. All right.
So you can
So
do
now we've
2FA with this if you want to, is what you're saying.
exactly.
Okay.
You can do that. You can do what do they call it? The magic link emails where you just enter
Yeah,
an email,
you get
sends a
like you
link,
get
and
a
you click.
link and then you click
Yeah.
the link and it shows up. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. Any of those kinds of things. You can roll your own as well. And you're going to hear a lot of purists in FileMaker say, oh, no, no, don't roll your own. It's so dangerous, so dangerous. It's dangerous maybe in FileMaker, but you can do the similar kinds of things here. Like, for example, what a lot of people sometimes will do is they'll send a cookie, right? A cookie is just it's a key and a value that gets
Hmm.
saved on your computer. And
Hmm.
you can set that to expire in a day. So you can make your own, enter an email, then it emails you a cookie and then or a link, sorry, a smart link, like we just did. As soon as they click on it, it sets a cookie for the day. Any kind of concoction that you can create, and I say that pretty liberally because there are so many different nuances that we find. Like we have hundreds of apps running on our network, and it's amazing how many times somebody says, "Oh, I want to do it this way," and it's slightly different than a way that anybody else has done before. So it's pretty flexible regardless. So now we've got the authentication. There's a couple of things that have to happen with BetterForms and the way this user gets registered. It's not using a FileMaker account, right? If I go into my managed FileMaker database, security, sorry, you'll see I have my admin account and I have a BetterForms its own account, and that's it. And that will work with as many people as I want. So I'm not actually managing the accounts here, and that's a good thing. These
Hmm.
people are web users, they're not FileMaker users. If they're FileMaker users, this is the place to manage that. But for web users, it's not. Um,
So what do you do when they enter the email and password? You match it against the information stored in their contact card, or?
Yeah, sort of. Let's have a look at here. Let me just pull up a drawing here again from the other day. So in your FileMaker database, BetterForms is connecting to a
Hmm.
small proxy file or a helper file.
Okay.
That helper file acts as an interface between the web and your business file, or you might even, it's possible you have multiple business files here as
Hmm.
well, right? And this could just as easily be connected to any of those. Um, This helper file also helps you to debug. So let's look at what happened when I actually registered here. I'm going to actually pull up my helper file here. It's just so we can see. And there it is there. And let's close this off. Did I save something? That's a stressful box, right? Like there's no right answer. When you
Hmm.
close something, did I save it? Did I save it? Did I edit it? You know? Right? There's always it's always like a challenge. I'm always struggling on that one.
No, yeah, I.
Sometimes there's two wrong answers. I don't know. Figure that one out. Okay. So here's what the helper file looks like. It's basically got a bunch of records. These are the transactions between the web and your FileMaker database. So you have full transparency. You can also do some things like debugging to see how big the payloads are, how long the call times are, and so on. So I'm just going to jump to the end here. And here's where that sign up page loaded. You can see it's very little burden, 33 milliseconds when the page first loaded. And this is a really slow, this is our development server. So it's like really slow and junky, if you will, because it's got like lots of files and stuff. So it's a very, very light burden from BetterForms to your app. Um, and what's happening here is when I sign up, let me just see if I can find an actual one here. So here's an actual sign up one here. I think let's sign up register. What's happening is FileMaker will run, or sorry, BetterForms will run another type of hook, and it'll run and execute another script step. So we'll look at that right now, what that script step looks like. And it'll run in our common hooks, our common folder scripts. It'll run one called on registration. And this is the other part of creating a new account. BetterForms automatically will create a, did I close that totally? I think it might have, nope. Yeah, BetterForms automatically will create a record, a user record in that helper file. You'll see it here. Just a sec here. There it is here. It's a single user. I only have one user in here.
Okay.
And this is what's actually used to connect to that person, right? You create a one-to-one sort of relationship between
Hmm.
this and the entity in your database, your main business file that you want to connect to. So in my case, I want contacts. That seems the most logical one. We could have accounts maybe as well, but the contact, a person would have an individual account. So that is what I want to have like sort of a one-to-one relationship
Okay.
with.
So to make sure I understand this correctly,
Mhm.
uh, this is a helper file. So this is kind of turning it into a multi-file solution, but not necessarily really. But you
Sort of.
need,
There's no actual
s-
connection.
yeah. Oh, wait.
At
Okay.
least
So
there's
you don't
no
connect in relationships at all?
no.
Okay.
That makes integration easier. And it makes it a lot more robust when you got to update files because there's only one script that connects between the two files, a single script. So if anything would ever to break, that would
Got
be
it.
the only breaking point.
Okay.
That's done intentionally.
So the information is just passed between the files via scripts.
Right.
Okay.
So here's what happens. There's an ID here. Each one of these records has a unique ID, right? BetterForms user ID record here. I don't know if anybody does this. You ever talked about this? This is a trick I picked up like years ago. Actually, I think it was probably Steve Winter, I think, who first one I saw that. Um, and and he's got a sort of a brilliant way of looking at a lot of things. And he prepends onto unique IDs like a shortcut to the table. So we do this as well. And it's really handy because if that UUID is floating out in the wild somewhere, you know exactly where it came from, right? You know the table that it belonged to. So all that's doing, if you ever want to, this is kind of a FileMaker trick, right? But I'll just show you really quick here. I think it should be in here. Just really simple, right? It doesn't get any simpler than that. But now when you're using that UUID, if it's ever floating anywhere, you know it came from invoices for an INV, or you know it came from contacts or wherever it is. So
That's
there's never
actually
a
a nifty
question.
trick. Okay. I'll have to
Yeah, it's
keep
just a
a mental
cool
note of
trick,
that.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just a pure FileMaker thing. All right. So we have this UUID. So we've also gone in, and this is the last part of this sort of integration, if you will. We've gone into this user record or the contact record, Command Shift D, and we've created a field called ID user, ID better forms right here. Um, this is a one-to-one user in the helper file. So this record here this field gets populated with that ID when I register. So in other words, that's how I know which BetterForms ID is actually my real contact ID. So we store a separate ID here. Let me show you a bit more to that to make it make a bit more sense. So when the user registered, when they signed up, make sure I'm in the right file on registration, I grabbed the email. Emails passed in through a $$ BF user. That's when that's set by our framework.
Mm-hmm.
And I grab an ID. That's the ID of the BetterForms user. So now I got the email, the real email and the real ID. We don't have this person necessarily. I mean, they might not even be created in our database. In our case, we know they are because we had to. Our business rule said we have to invite them. I'm going to go to my layout. My layout is my contacts layout. I'm going to do a conventional find here because I need to mutate the record. So enter find, set field, perform find, right? Standard look up something. I didn't bother writing. You can maybe you can crop this out later on in production, right? I didn't put the error handling in here to say what happens if that user is not in the database, but you should actually handle that scenario in case somewhere between their invite they got deleted. Shouldn't happen though. Set field, and I was just joking about the cropping it out. We set the ID BetterForms in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm erasing, this is the key here. I'm erasing or blowing out that temporary token. So now I can't re-register them again.
Got it.
Again, it's running on server, so we commit the record, and then we show them a modal that says, great, you're all registered. Now you can log in. And that's it.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm I'm going to volunteer and be a little slow. Uh, at what point in this did it talk back to the helper file, or is it the helper file that called this script?
Yes, the helper file registered the user. It did this on its own. BetterForms took care of this.
Okay,
And then it passed or it called that script with these two pieces of information here.
got it. Okay, so it's not that the FileMaker database is calling the helper file, it's that the helper file is calling the FM database to pass the information along.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Exactly. Got it. I
got
mean,
it.
sorry.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's why we call these hooks because it's the other system is hooking into your FileMaker, or you can think of
Hmm.
the FileMakers hooking into your other system there. So basically, in any of these scripts that run by BetterForms, information is passed along in as part of the environment of the script, and that's always passed in these global variables. Since it's running on server, these are all separate sessions. The global variables are all they're all unique to that particular call, so there's no crosstalk. All right, so now we've got the user registered. Let's look at how the rest of this works, and then we can start to augment it a bit more. Is this one? Sorry, I'm gonna find my file here. Okay, I'll close that. All right. So let me just log in myself. It is a real web app, so my 1Password acknowledges all of that stuff, makes suggestions for passwords and everything. So that's a nice thing about using web tech versus something that approximates web tech, right?
Yes.
Um, okay, so now I've logged in and I want to fetch some data. I want to get data from my dashboard. I didn't bother populating these yet because I figured I could save them for a call or save them for today or something. But I got estimates. It says there's two estimates, and I see my two estimates here. And if I click on estimates over here, I see there's three estimates, and I think that's correct with my database. We've already determined that. If I go into estimates, there's three because one of them belongs to a different business. So it's these three here, right? Two active, one dead. All right. So let's look at how that works, right? When we call this page, we have that script trigger turned on, right? So let's go to that page again. I'm going to go to my dashboard. And here's my dashboard here. And when this first loads up, we have this enable on form request, which is that script trigger on layout load, same thing. Run that script when this
Hmm.
before this page renders. So
Okay.
before it renders. Let's look at the script. Go back into our script workspace. Let's clean up a little bit. And we're going to go into this one here for Dash because this is the folder that's handling the scripts for dashboard. There's only two of them in here. There's an empty folder in here in case you need to put some other helper type scripts. I like to keep my code sort of compartmentalized or
Hmm.
based on concern or scope. All right. So we have the on form request hook here, and this is the thing that's fetching our data. So there's not a lot of code here, and in fact, there's actually a little bit more code because it has some other pieces of data here. But if I go to my estimates one, almost exactly the same, there's literally 3 lines of code here, 4 lines maybe total. So let's look at how that works. We'll start with the estimates page, and First thing we grab is the ID user BetterForms because BetterForms, remember, if the user is authenticated, if they're logged in, it's going to pass that ID along with every call. So you can use that to derive what your scope of data is going to be. This is what makes things like building multi-tenant applications really, really easy because you're not worrying about protecting the user from interface. If you had to make this interface here multi-tenant, you're having to worry about locking down all the menus, all of the error in the cases where you might have an error or a mistake or a bug somewhere. All of the links, all of the buttons, you have to make sure that you scope out um, how, what data that they can see. And sure, you can use record level access. That's brutally hard, in my opinion, right? I've yet to see anybody who really does a great job at using that, right? To filter down data. It's much easier to control it through a programmatic fashion. So here's what we're doing here. We grab the ID of the user, BetterForms, and then I'm using that get column again. You can see why this is really handy. So I'm getting out of my contacts table the actual ID of the organization, right? Or sorry, the ID of the account, my mistake. I'm directly grabbing the ID of the account because remember, Charles here, over here, Charles in here, you can't see it there, but Charles is directly connected to an account. He's directly sitting as part of an account. He's connected to the Delphs Engineering one in here. I'm on the wrong record here. Okay. So this will return the account ID, the primary key for the account table, when the contact ID BetterForms matches the one that's being passed in. Is that one clear? That one's a little bit tricky.
Can you try that one for me again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
If pure FileMaker, this is pure FileMaker, but pure FileMaker, traditional FileMaker talk would
Hmm.
be perform find and return the ID of the account.
Okay.
And for the find variable, find ID user or ID BetterForms with this value.
Okay.
So it's
So
basically just performing a find.
you're searching an account that matches that contact ID with the BetterForms ID? Okay.
Correct. Because I've saved that earlier when I registered. So now I know the account ID, right? So this is my security, if you will, right here, right? Because I have to be only returning that one. Next, there's one more line in here. Let's have a look at that. And this is another one of those queries again. And this is a get column, but the difference is this is going to return an array, a JSON array. And it's going to return a JSON array of a field called as JSON list. We'll look at what that is in a second, but just imagine that's an object that represents the record.
Okay.
And it's going to return that as an array when, or for all estimate records where the ID account matches the ID of the account.
Okay. So it's looking basically for the estimates for a certain company.
Bingo.
Okay.
Right. In this case, it's finding all of them as well. Right. Now, that may not be your exact scenario, depending on how many records you have in there. If you have a company that's, got tens of thousands of estimates, you wouldn't be, you'd probably filter it down a bit more. That's it. So we found estimates, and to see what that variable, or sorry, that field looks like, let me just show you quick. In here, I've created one function, one calculation, and it is a text-based calculation. It's called as JSON underscore list. As JSON underscore list. What that is a JSON object here. And in this particular case, I'm putting the commas forward. You'll see me do both ways just to appease all of both sides of the fence on that one. Depending I like to put the commas forward lately, but I never used to. And what it's doing is JSON set element. And it's building up a JSON object that represents the estimate. It is missing a primary key in here, though. No, it does have an ID estimate. So it has the primary key, it has the displayed estimate number like 001, 002, bill to company, bill to street, status, and order total. Maybe we can add something else in there. I'm not sure. if there's other good information that we'd want to put in here for a given estimate. Maybe the date created. We don't have that in
Oh,
here.
that'd be good. I think
Yeah,
that's got
okay.
most of the important information, I think.
Yeah, let me duplicate this, copy, paste, paste, and let's put the date created in here.
Okay.
And I'll put date created, and I'm going to put JSON string. There we go.
That's just identifying what type of information it is, right? Whether or not it's a
Correct.
text or a number. Okay.
Yeah, and you can technically leave it like this,
Okay.
but it's better to explicitly say or cast what you expect that data to be,
Okay, so it doesn't
right?
guess by accident and get it wrong. Would that be why you'd
Bingo.
want to do that? Okay.
Right. Yeah. And there are some edge cases where you got some things that look like numbers that aren't. Dates are kind of like that, can potentially be like that. Um, Time, some different things can look like numbers or vice versa. They're not numbers, or sorry, they don't look like numbers, but sorry, they don't look like text, but they're numbers, something like that. Anyway, so
Got it.
that's the reason for that. It's just a better practice. This is done in a lot of languages of
Hmm.
casting things, specifically. Right,
Yeah.
whether it's from TypeScript to virtually every language that you specify what this variable is actually is. So that's not a bad practice. It's something that's not as common to FileMaker though, traditionally,
No.
because we have this flexible variable type. All right.
Yes.
So that's producing a JSON object, right? And we looked at it the other day, what that JSON object looked like. It's just a, let's go. There we go. If we were to pull it out right here really quick, and let me make sure I'm on an invoice. I'm on a contact. I'm on an estimate. Yes, I am. All right. So if we were to look at what one of those would look like, it looks something like this. List. There it is. You can't really see it there, so let's just format it up. JFE. Right. So that produces that nice object. All right. So for everybody who's always building these objects up manually and like
Hmm.
iterating over loops, stop doing that. This is so much easier. So much easier. And that, that's your value out of this whole thing for the week is just building up your JSON like this. This is technically, some people might notice that it's an unstored calculation. Well, this one can be potentially, but if you're having related records,
Hmm.
it could be unstored. So here's a really cool technique. Estimates have line items. Line items are
Yes.
from a related table, right?
Yes.
So how do we do that? You notice I had as JSON list, and it didn't have any related records. There's nothing in here.
No.
But I have another one called as JSON detail. This is almost the same object, but it's a little bit bigger. It
Okay.
has a key, a related field called line items. And it's got this function called array from related. I'll explain that in a second. And it's pointing to the relationship through the relationship. So it's a little trickier. It's pointing from the estimates to the line items of those estimates, and it's
Okay.
grabbing their as JSON.
Okay.
So
So it'd
they
be
have their own little
grabbing.
as JSON. Yeah. So they're creating little mini objects of each line, and we're sticking those mini objects into the big parent object.
Okay. So would it be an array that has multiple miniature arrays in it, or are you just like concatenating it on top of the larger array?
No, it's the first one. The first one. So let's have a
Okay.
look. Let's have a look. So we go here, and this is JSON format elements, and we will grab array detail. So here you go. So here's an example. This one only has one angular item underneath here. So it's an array. It only has one item. But now you have this beautiful object again that represents everything. And you can do this like we have typically what we'll do is for like an invoice, we'll grab the account information, we'll grab the contact, we'll grab everything that's related to it, throw it all in that one big JSON object because it's only one record, right? So it still stays performant because even though we're grabbing the stuff across the relationship, we're not grabbing it for every record. This is the detailed version. We're only grabbing it for this record. So we don't really have to worry about performance here. Um, yeah, so that's a really, really, really handy trick if you want to
Okay.
build arrays that are related in records and how you can pull those things in.
That's cool. We do have a question about the SQL statements, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, basically, how performant is the SQL? The first
Yeah, great
performant
question.
question is how does it scale to millions of records, and how does it deal with locked records?
It's for fetching, it is generally fine. There are some things about Wim Decor is mentioned some. He did some experiments once where you're fetching records that where you have one that's locked on a machine, and
Hmm.
that became an issue. It's generally not an issue here though, and the reason for that is who would be locking that record? Would you like in most web apps, it's the user of the web that would be locking the record of anybody, and
Hmm.
they're on the other side, so they're already on your side, if you will. Um, Now, as far as the SQL query goes, it's super performant. Um, where it loses performance is if you have really complex joins and things like that in FileMaker. And there's been lots of people have written all kinds of blogs on this kind of stuff, but we're not using it that way. We're using it in the absolute most simplest, right? It's a select blank where blank is blank. And that's it. It's absolutely the purest, simplest way of using it. And
Hmm.
because of that, it maintains performance. Um, the real challenge is when you go through those related records, you don't want to grab stuff from two and three and four tables away for a whole bunch of found set. It's okay to do it for one thing, like an invoice. Like if I was to be on this estimate, I could be pulling the account that's related. The bill to might be, I don't think it's normalized in here in this database, but it might be related. This is related here, right? I could be pulling, or from the accounts table, I could be pulling all kinds of stuff. There's like 5 or 6 related things. Totally fine for one record, totally fine for 2 or 3 records, but you don't want to be pulling hundreds of records like that because you're pulling massive amounts of data now. It exponentially goes up.
Okay, that's good to know. A related question. If you did want to code this without the SQL statements, could you?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can just go to layout perform find
Hmm.
and grab that. Now with FileMaker, you couldn't easily build the array up
Hmm.
until just recently. Um, Now FileMaker is, what is it, a relay make array or make array or whatever the new function is.
Yeah, the new function for it. I would have to
Yeah.
go look at it, what it is.
Yeah. And quite honestly, I mean, like I live in JSON, but I don't bother generally using it because I don't need it because I
Hmm.
already have existing infrastructure that takes care of that.
Hmm.
So when this runs, so it's fetching those estimates, and then finally we're passing the estimates back into a key called estimates. And that is how this is returning this data. Now, something you might have noticed, this would be the exact same if you were to build some kind of web API and serve this web data out to some other service or anything. Um, you could do the exact same techniques by fetching the data, preparing it, shipping it off to some other service. Maybe it's a post. Maybe you want to post this invoice to a third-party system. You would do this exact same stuff. I'm showing you this kind of a modern method, simple method, because it really involves like 2 or 3 or 4 lines maybe. And it keeps things, once you get comfortable with it, it's like you'll never want to go back to manually building JSON. It's just barbaric. All right. So if we go to invoice or estimates, let's have a look there. Just fetch the data. And here are my estimates here. 1, 2, 3 estimates. And that's the detail version, the smaller, the slimmer version. So I hope that makes sense. There's some leftover cruft data from development there, but
Are we following everybody? Are we tracking along, processing, understanding what's going on?
this one's a little trickier, right? This one's
Hmm.
got active estimates, not grabbing every estimate. So let's have a quick look at how you can find
I'm
records
assuming you would
and
change the find to look only for the.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And that's exactly what it does. So here it is here. I'm using a custom function again, but again, you could do a perform find or any complex find, like find the accounts plus the ones within the last 3 weeks or some kind of, you know, business logic that the boss comes up with.
Hmm.
And you would, in that case, I just use a regular find for that because it's going to be more easier to maintain. Here again, I grab the ID of the user BetterForms. I grab the account. These are exact same 2 lines. In this case, the estimates, I'm just using a different function called get array as column, or sorry, get column as array, two
Hmm.
fields. So it's finding this when it's returning this, the as JSON, when the account matches the account and the status matches active.
Got it. Okay.
That's it. So it's the same find though, right? That's the
Yes.
takeaway. One other thing here too is we have some metrics over here, right? Maybe we want to throw some metrics in here of some various pieces of information. So in this case, it says there's two estimates. I didn't bother populating these. So let's have a look at how that works. Excuse me. So here, gather metrics. That's what we got right here. So estimates equals. So what I did is I just generated a count. I got JSON list keys because it's an array. So JSON list keys, and I got a value count of those. That will generate that count. Now the truth is you don't really need to count. You could have done the count in BetterForms easier and it'd be more performant because it's running in JavaScript, which
Hmm.
is super fast, and it runs on their computer, so it's not using any CPU of your main server. But this is not a big deal. I think it's easier to follow for most people. So I grabbed the estimates and I just did I grabbed the counts here. I could do something like if I wanted to find contacts, I could do something like go to layout. I'll find every contact here. Let's just something like layout, contact, contacts. I don't know. There's a lot of contacts in here. Um, I think they're all the same. Here's no, that's sync contacts. I'm not sure which one to use. I'm going to use this one. We'll find out. I'm going to just show all records. Show all records. I'm just going to get the total count of all the contacts in the database, just for an example.
Hmm.
And I'm going to do set variable, and we'll do dollar contacts, contacts count, something like this. And it'll be, is it get found count? Get found count. Is that it? Yeah, there it goes. Boom, boom. Learn your keystrokes. All right. And there it is, contacts count. And now I just pass it into here, right? And contacts count, oops, contacts count. I think that's right. Let's see. Typos, contacts. Yeah, we'll this close so we can make sort of be friends. Contacts count, contacts count. There, that should find all the contacts in my database, right? And let's try it out. And now we see there's two contacts in here. So that's how we can populate those metrics with whatever data that we want. We don't
Hmm.
have to, we don't have to use those as well. Um, it might be things that are important that you need to look at, like, hey, there's needs attention, you know, change one of those to needs attention. And the invoices would be the same thing. A lot of times we just populate it with data that's already in the front end. Like we already know how many contacts here or estimates are here. So we
Hmm.
might populate it with that. Other times we might populate these metrics and these data with stuff that's like trend related things, or how many are this week, leading indicators, lagging indicators. If you want to learn more about those, Mark Richmond had a really good talk on leading and lagging indicators at Claris Engage from last year, I think it was. So,
Okay, that makes sense. I have a question.
mhm.
This is mostly data consumption. What if I want to swap the status to dead? How does the information get sent back?
Right. Okay. So we haven't done that here, but let's do a bit more. On this is a table in here.
Hmm.
This is a data table. You can see it sort of set up right here. Let's have a look. And I think I just added a piece of information. Let me just check. I thought I added a piece of information onto here. Let's see. Bill to date created. Okay. So I've added a date created in here. All right. So there's some extra data.
Hmm.
And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy one of these here. There. All right, let's add date created. And then when we click on this record, we'll click on this row here.
Hmm.
I think we already have it on this one here. When I click on, yeah, it goes to another page. So we
Ooh,
want to
okay.
sort of build that in. Okay. I'll actually build it in on this estimates page here because I've already got that done. Estimates page. I'm using this new experimental version, and every few days there's a new release. So let's just hopefully. There we go. Okay. All right. So, Here's my estimates. I have these are called columns, and I want to add a column, right? So maybe we'll put the right now it says the invoice. This is the invoice. These are the names of the columns here. We can add a column. We'll call it. Oh, did I? Oh, no, no. It was called. What was it called? Date created, something like that. Ordered, or no, no, no. Date created. There it is. There. So we'll add date created. There's no data in here because the data that my sample data doesn't have one of those date createds in there, and that's why I wanted to grab a copy of this. So let me just grab one of these. And we're going to go over to our development data, and I'm just going to add the date created in there. So
Okay,
now
so that's why you added that. Got it. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that's just so we can work with real data.
Mm-hmm.
We can see that real data. It doesn't just make stuff up. All right, so there's date created there. And we also did something else here too in this table. There's a setting here called row click actions. So what happens when you click on this row? What do you want it to do? And what I want it to do is I want it to run one of my little scripts, local scripts. Um, and I have a script called go to estimate, go to estimate. And it's showing an alert. We don't really need that. I don't think that was probably for earlier. And it's running a path action. That's the equivalent of go to layout. So you can think of this as a one step script. It's not a complicated script. It's a one step in the script, and that script is FileMaker's go-to layout. But in this case, it's called path, a path action, and it's going to go to that path, and that is set up by this setting right here, row click action. Right, so that's what's going to happen when I click on that row. So I save this, and there we go. There's my new date added. I click on the row, and I navigate to this. Now this page is not populated, and we'll build this up for the last thing for today. Excuse me. All right, this is just dummy data on here. It's not even the same fields. This was just out of the template, BetterForms template, and we want to customize it up. So let's think what happened here. It's created a path and it's added a query, and you can see there's an ID here. That happens to be the ID of this particular estimate. When we get this, now we can go and fetch the full estimates, the detailed version of the estimate, the one that has all of the data in it. So let's do that. That's not setting the state. I think we'll set the state probably tomorrow. We'll add a button that says like approve or disapprove or something like that, or place the order that says download, but I think it would be something like that would make more sense. So let's do that quick. All right, so we're already going to that other page. So let me go to the detail page now. And actually, let me just see what it is. I think it's an invoice page, invoice detail. Nice. I think that's what it is. Invoice detail. Might not be. Just see. I think it's this one here. One of these. Just double check here. Okay. Demo gods. A sec here. I am using this version, and there might be something awry with it. Just a second here. F do, and I'm just gonna see. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to fix that up in a second here. But in the meantime, I'll show you what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
This invoice detail page will run, or we'll have to actually create a hook for it. We got a hook here called invoices. Cancel. And we need to add a hook to handle that detail page into BetterForms or into our database. So let's add one of those, and we're going to call it invoices. So we're going to go over to our helper file, which has, there it is. It has the integration steps, and I'm just gonna add another folder and call it invoices. So there we go. That's going to copy that onto the clipboard. We do need to have a base elements plugin, but almost everybody has that. And we will go back over to here. And I just remember I said I was using a demo version, so I just have this over here. This is our invoice here. And I'm just gonna turn on invoices. I'm gonna turn on our on form request. There we go. So now when that page loads, it'll try to fetch that data. Okay. I just wanted to do that. I was just doing that off screen. All right. And we are going to paste that new folder step invoice A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. There it goes in there. Sorry, I'm still memorizing the alphabet.
No, no, I sing. Okay, every time I
I'm
have to
not the
go
only
put
one,
anything
right?
in alphabetical, I sing it. I sing it to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's okay. I don't have a problem with that. Sometimes I use my fingers.
I still can't tell my left from my right. If you tell me left to right,
No,
50%
I'm
of the
pretty
time
good
I'm
at
going
that.
wrong.
Yeah, that one I got that one down. But all right, so here's the invoices, and this is the on form request. So now, when we went to that invoice page right over here, it created a what's this called, a URL, sorry,
Hmm.
with an ID, right? So let me go back to here. I went back to here, and there it is. It's an ID. So we're going to grab that ID. So set variable. I'm going to call it $ID estimate, and it's a JSON object, so it's going to be JSON get element out of the $BF query. We've used that before, and it's called ID. That's it. So that gives us our ID of the invoice. Now what we can do is we can find that invoice or estimate, sorry, set variable. We're going to call it just $estimate. You guys are going to talk about naming conventions, I heard, next week.
Yes, we
One of
are.
the naming conventions we do is everything is ID. ID is the primary key.
Hmm.
ID something is the primary key of another entity,
Hmm.
or or if you're not in a context. And if I just use the word estimate, that we assume that as a JSON object. That's just a that's just a me thing. But estimate. There it goes. All right. So now we want to find this estimate here. So we're going to do get column. Oops. Get column. And this is going to be the column I want to return was this as JSON detail, where the um, ID, that's ID. This is a primary key. It's ID. This one here equals ID estimate. ID estimate. There. So this will fetch my invoice,
Hmm.
right? Same technique we used before, right?
Okay.
It just does a find and it does it safe. This is what I really like about this. It's not, if you're building something with FileMaker UI, there's a potential you could end up on the wrong record, right? And then, the user, everybody's probably done that, especially in a legacy system. It's like, how come my find menu's got data in it? And it's like, oops, sometimes you're not in find. And then the first record of the database always gets pooched all the time, right? Because of that. So, all right. And we're going to pass this back to BetterForms. So we send it in a model. And we're going to JSON set element, JSON set element. Within that, we're going to set a key called estimate. And that is going to be did you know you can put commas in between these arguments? It's like some kind of
Mm,
old FileMaker thing.
huh.
Dollar estimate. Oops. Dollar estimate. I think you can still do it. And that's going to be a JSON object. Okay, let me just double check that. Estimate the JSON object. There we go. Work should be good. Boom, boom. Oops, no, that's wrong. Semicolon, $BF model one, two. Oh, there, right there. Wrong language. There we go. Okay. That's it. That's fetching our invoice. One line to get the ID. The next line is getting the estimate out of the database, and the last line is passing it. You could put these all into one line if you really wanted to write some bad code.
Hmm.
Uh, all right, now let's test that out. Let me go back to estimates here. Click on an estimate, and let me see estimate right here, line items. So I got my estimate here. Don't forget, we still have an invoice from our development data, so I'll get rid of
Hmm.
that in a second. But here is our estimate. So it says Dolph's Engineering and it's dead estimate two. Let me just make sure that's a real thing and it's not, there's no magic there. Oops. And let's go to this one here and let's have a look. And this one's got two line items and it's active. So this is the right one.
Okay.
And I'm going to copy that. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to mod up my um, my my estimate. I'm working in a staging version. I just switched over to our production version here.
Hmm.
They're connected to the same data, so I'm just going to continue from that point here. Let me just do this, yeah. All right. So here is my invoice, and I'm going to go to my sample data. I'm going to get rid of my estimate. I'm going to put my invoice. I'm going to put an estimate in here. So now I get some real sample data. And let's have a look. We can, let's see, we got this table. And right now the table is connected to the wrong piece of data. It's connected to invoice line items. And we want it to be estimate line items. Is it line items? Let me see what they're called. Estimate line items right there. So we can go estimate line items. And it's got the three items, but it doesn't have any data because these fields are not matching what the estimates are. So I'm going to get lazy. I'm just going to say to the AI, can you connect the columns to the estimate line items?
Saves time.
Sometimes. Generally it does. And it's a little bit verbose sometimes. This is my account actually has a little different AI than the general one does. So we're actually experimenting with how it performs. So my version of AI is not the same as everybody else's version. And because of that, or at least some of us on the team, because of that, it's not always super performant, or at least not today. So we have product, quantity, taxable unit price. I'll just do this. So product quantity, there's a capital Q on that one. Case matters, product quantity, taxable, and I'm just going to go unit price here. Taxable unit price. There we go. All right, so we got that in there.
Hmm.
We've connected that up to our data. So, and I don't think we have the address in here in our estimate because I didn't include it from the other information, but we do have some of this. So let me try to fire this up. Something like this. Let's see. Hey, Eduardo, if you're watching, it's a little bit overzealous with searching for the docs all the time. It's something we just changed like a half a week ago when we were dialing things in.
Yeah.
So I
Nature of
apologize
testing.
if yeah, that's the nature of it here. Let me just do this way here. This one's a different agent. Dun, 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 dun. If not, that's all we got. There we go. Okay. Yes. So we don't have all of the data in here. We got some of the data, and it looks like some of the data information is not quite in the database there.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, now we got this connected. And let's jump back to here. We'll go into this $354 one. And there we go. So now we got calculators and calculator cooling stands. And if I jump back over to this one here, markers and art easels. And what's this one here? widget plan and licenses for the widgets. So to do, change the status. How do we do that? We're getting a little bit over time again. But I'll talk about what we'll do, and then maybe we can wire it up tomorrow and we'll finish that off.
That sounds good to
Um,
me. So,
all right, perfect. What we're going to do is we're going to add a button in here, maybe like a
hmm
small button here that says change state or change approve or something like that. Unpaid is that data is not connected to the live data yet, so we should probably change that. Change the invoice number and change the word from invoice. And
hmm
that's in the back crayons or back breadcrumbs. Change the word invoice to estimate
hmm
and a button that when we click it, it should go back into the database.
hmm
And I don't know if there's one is there a button already here? No. Doesn't look
What
like there's a button to automatically convert it. So maybe so I thought I could have sworn starting point has one that says convert an invoice into a
I think so too. Maybe I'm hallucinating. It's also possible. Invoices have been created from this estimate. If you covered over it tells you that that exists. So,
right. Okay, so maybe it was done already or something, and maybe
yes.
right, because open related invoice. So maybe I clicked it, right? I clicked the button already. So we'll have to find one that hasn't. Okay, that's that one there. Here we go. Make
There
in.
we go. Yep.
So
Okay.
what we'll do is we'll click this button. Well, we'll run the script that this button runs
hmm
when we click it over here. So it'll do the same functionality. That way we're using all that same, because there's a lot of code behind this to copy an invoice in the related tables. It's kind of complex, right? So we don't want to have to repeat that. And instead, what we'll do is we'll just reuse our existing FileMaker code. The main takeaway is that the business logic, the stuff that moves data around and the stuff that decides what data is allowed to be moved around, excuse me, lives inside FileMaker, and that's where it should live. It shouldn't live outside of FileMaker because FileMaker is awesome for business logic like this. All right. Any other questions before we finish up for today?
Someone asking where they can get the custom functions.
Oh, great question. You can let me just see here. We have a download link, and let me just see here. You can grab these off of our helper file. You can download this. It's free, but I gotta find Dropbox is slow today.
Yeah, I'll go through little phases where you're like, come on, Dropbox. I know you can be
Yeah,
faster than this.
helper, and there's always a propaganda for um helper file. Open. There we go. This is it here. What's the best way, Margaret, to share a link?
Uh, you can give me the link directly, email it to me, and then I will make a bit.ly version of it so people don't have to type in the whole thing.
Right.
Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I'm just wondering if there's like a little QR code thing, but it doesn't matter. You can't really scan them easy. Okay, I have the link here and I will get that to you. I don't think you can just search it. Oh, you know what? Let me just double check. Let me just quick check our docs because we may have a link in there and then you can,
Just distribute that?
yeah, let me just see here. Helper. Updating, installing BetterForms helper, where there might be a link in here to download it. Could have sworn there is. Configure the file, install the helper file. I think there's a link in here. I'm just looking for like a hyperlink because they kind of blend in. Each file, I don't see it in here, which actually it should actually be in here. Integration steps. Yeah, I don't see a link in here. So we will get you that link though, and you can play around with those custom functions.
Okay, cool. Then I will immediately share that out.
All right. Any other questions, folks?
I think we're good. So I'm going to run the music and let you be free and hopefully feel a little better.
Yeah.
Uh, sorry
See.
about the cold. It's just the nature of travel. Whenever it comes back, you're like, oh, I'm totally fine. Nope, something gets you. It always does.
Yeah. All good.
All right. Thank you very much,
All
Charles.
right.
Looking
Thanks,
forward to seeing
folks.
this tomorrow.
All right. Awesome. Cheers.
Bye.
the know.